fourth question in just a second, but I realized after I finished the last video that I had skipped one part of the question. That is to run the same test for the control group to see if their scores had increased or decreased from pre to post on the GAF. So what I did was pretty much the same thing as what I did before. First of all, I have to select just the control group. And so in the printout, you can see the result of that command. It basically says, okay, compute a filter and choose only the group that has the assignment number 2. That's the control group. And then not selected 1. And so what that does is for the groups, anything labeled with a 1, identified as the web CPT group, is excluded, right? And then the control group is included. Okay? So when we go back then to our t-test, then I ran it with alternating GAF pre and GAF post, just so you can see how similar those printouts are. See how the numbers are just kind of flipped. Doesn't change the test result at all. And then I came down here to the result at the end. There was only a 1.3 point difference in GAF scores between pre and post in the control group. That led to a T of negative 0.785 or 7.785. That's not a very big T when you take into account the size of the standard error of the mean. Probability of observing this T statistic by chance or measurement error, our significance level is 0.43. So about 43% of the time, we can account for this level of difference just by factors that have nothing to do with the treatment. So in this case, we failed to reject the null hypothesis. So if I go to my results section, I say, in contrast, GAF pre and GAF post scores in the control group were not statistically significantly different, right? T, and again, it's going to be 49 because we have 50 folks in the control group, and minus 1 is 49. And the T value, the GAF pre-scores were less than the post scores. So their post scores actually improved just a little bit, but by only 1.3 points. So it's 0.79. And they'll just put NS. Okay, put that into APA formatting with the italics, and that part of the question's done. Okay, so that's that. So let's move on to then let's see if I can find it. Where did it go? Let's move on to, I'm not sure where it went. The next question. The next question, I'll have to find it in my, is that it? No. The next question involves just running a correlation between the GAF post scores and the BDI2 scores to see if they're related. So I'm going to go in and go back to my worksheet. Okay. And I'm going to, at this point, get rid of the selection criteria for the data. We're just going to run both the treatment and control group data to answer this question. The easiest way to do this, I could go under data, go back into select cases, go in here, change that. But actually what happens is within the worksheet, it has a variable that says filter, and that represents the command that was made to select the data. All I have to do is delete that. And so I think I do cut, yeah, and now all the data are selected again. So I just deleted the filter. Okay, running correlation is pretty simple. We're going to go correlate, and then we'll say linear correlation. Okay, oops, let me try that again. Bivariate, there it is. I was on the wrong drop-down menu. And we're going to pick the two variables we want to correlate, so GAF post, BDI2 outcome. Again, not a lot of options here for this, but if I wanted to produce some statistics, the means and standard deviations for each variable, sure, why not? Let's do that. Okay. I have never used style. I don't even know what's in there. You know, you can look at that later. We're going to run a Pearson product moment correlation. It's going to be a two-tailed test of significance. And so let's just see what that comes out to. What would we expect? Now, this is worth thinking about. We know from the way the BDI2 is set up that low scores mean less depression, right? So it's a good thing to have a low score on the BDI2. We also know that on the GAF that higher scores mean better functioning. So it's good to have a high score. So that suggests to us that as GAF scores go up, BDI2 scores should go down. So we should be looking at an inverse relationship, which leads to, and that's expressed in SPSS as a negative correlation. So that's what we're expecting, is a significant negative correlation. Let's see what we get. Okay, so here's GAF post and BDI2. Here are their means. This is across both the Web CDT and the BDI2 group. Standard deviations. Okay, and then we go to GAF post, and we just find the index, the cell that indexes GAF post with BDI2, and it's negative 5.42 with 2 asterisks. Those asterisks are interpreted down here, and it tells us exactly the significance level. The correlation is significant at the 0.01 level, two-tailed test. Okay, so now the question becomes, how do we write up that result? We got a significant negative correlation between BDI and GAF scores, which means that they are related to one another. And so I'm going to write up the result here. GAF post scores were significantly negatively correlated with BDI2 scores as expected. Okay, and now we've got to put in the APA formatting, and the formatting for a correlation is R. Okay, so we say R, and then it's N equals the number of subjects that we looked at, 100. Okay, and then we put in the actual correlation itself, and if you recall, it was negative 0.54. Okay, the probability of that occurring by chance or measurement error is less than 1 in 100. Okay, and we go italics for the P, italics for the R, and I am trying to remember. I had this issue on Sunday. I haven't checked up on it, and I probably should. Maybe you guys can check up on it too. Is whether this N is italicized or not. I honestly cannot remember because I don't report correlations like this very frequently, but we'll have that figured out by class. It's either going to be italicized or not. But anyways, that's the proper format, and you know, now we have pretty much the entire result section written. The last part of this question essentially asks you to write it all up in APA format. Well, we've already done that. So in terms of the first section of this assignment, you're done. Once you do this, write a good, concise summary of what you found, you'd be finished.